Hello crafty friends, it's Emily here with Peach Street Crafts, and today I'm here to share with you my very chunky but well-loved France album. So I actually posted, I think I posted a couple videos a while back of this album, of me kind of prepping everything that I was going to be using in the album and getting it ready. And then I just kind of got caught up with it and didn't end up posting any more videos, but I'm here to show you the completed album. So the album that I'm using is a 6x8 album from Hobby Lobby. I like the craft colored one so that I can decorate the cover however I want. I've also, in the past, I've added pockets, but this one was just so chunky that I didn't really have a lot of room to do that. I may get around to eventually decorating the inside covers. I thought about maybe even making it kind of like a junk journal style, where I have like some journaling and then some other little snippets and stickers here and there. But I'm not sure yet, so I just kind of left it blank. But I did want to go ahead and share it with you since it is all complete. So I used a lot of different collections. I honestly used a lot of scraps for this album because I wanted it to have kind of a vintage mismatched look. For the cover, both of these are from the Again and Again collection. This is an old collection by Crate Paper, and I just fussy cut these butterflies out of a 12 by 12 paper. And then I stitched around the edges so that it kind of had a more handmade look. I stitched the butterflies on as well as taped them just to make sure that they wouldn't get messed up whenever I go to store this album. This right here, I'm already a little bit worried about. I don't know if I want to cut it, but I did tape it down, so hopefully it will sit pretty flat whenever it's being stored. And then for these letters, these are just some little hand-drawn letters. And then I didn't love the way that the white looked on the background. I feel like it kind of got lost. So I just used some dictionary pages that I pulled out, and I just backed each of the individual pieces or letters on that, and then I just taped them down. In hindsight, once I finished it, I kind of wish that I would have maybe added some more stitching to stitch the letters on, but it probably would have made the album a good bit heavier than it already is, so I think it's okay that I skipped that. So this is from our France trip. We went to 3 different places in France in the summer of 2024, and this album just kind of documents our first like really big trip out of the country. So on the front page, we have our little flight tickets, and then there's a lot of journaling in this album because there's just so many little things that I wanted to remember whenever I looked back on this trip, or whenever I share this album with other people, they can kind of look and see what the pictures were of. And a lot of these pictures were a mix of pictures that I took on my phone, but I also brought 2 disposable cameras with us, just because I like the way that those types of pictures look too. And I thought it would be fun to kind of not know whether or not you got the picture. It really was fun. We loved it. So you'll see a mix of those as well. And as I think I already mentioned, this is a very chunky album, so I'm hoping that it won't be too long of a video. I won't talk about each individual page, but I'll just kind of show you what's on there. Like I mentioned, the albums that I use, the collections that I used are totally just varied. A lot of it is like Tim Holtz from Hobby Lobby, or like their little individual questions. This was the first picture that we took on the disposable camera. This was us right outside the airport before we went in. Luckily, we have amazing family members who were able to drop us off and pick us up, so we didn't have to pay for airport parking. And so this was kind of like saying goodbye to them. You could see we were just like so excited to begin our trip. And this was before the 8-hour flight. That kind of wasn't as fun. We were not smiling then, but there's lots of little journaling snippets and things that kind of pull out. So I'll try to show you those as well. This was on the disposable camera, same with this one. I really wasn't expecting those pictures to turn out as well as they did, but I actually love the way that they look, and most of the pictures that I took on them did end up turning out. This is another disposable camera picture. This one actually is journaling about the disposable camera. I added a lot of little like flippets because I don't always love just the way that the page protectors look. So I tend to do this a lot whenever I make albums. I love to have like the actual texture of paper somewhere in there. So I just kind of stitched along this one, added this floral ephemera, and then turned it into a little journaling card. It has journaling on the front and the back. This was on the disposable camera as well, and it is a picture of the wine cellar that we went to. We did a wine tasting in Tours, France, which is in the Loire Valley. And gotta have a sequin pocket. If you don't have a sequin pocket, did you even make an album, you know? I will say it was kind of hard to pick colors that I felt like matched some of my pictures in this album. I don't really have a lot of green sequins, so I just used something that I thought was pretty. This tag pulls out, and you can see that there's some journaling there about our tour guide who did the wine tasting tour with us. And one of the fun things about being in France in the summer, this was right around the summer solstice, so it actually didn't get dark until almost like 11:30 or midnight. So this was right when we got into France. It was like almost 10 p.m. and it was still so light outside, and that was so trippy to us because we live in Florida, so we don't ever experience that. Like in the summers here, it gets dark around 9 at the very latest, usually before then. This one doesn't have any journaling pullout, but you can see I kind of took even some Maggie Holmes stuff and one of the stickers from one of her more recent collections and stuck that on. I tried to incorporate a lot of the things that we got on the trip. So when we visited one of the chateaus, they had this little bookmark set and it came with 2 of each one. And I just thought they were so funny, but they're some of the historical figures that have lived in one of the chateaus. So I taped her on there, and then on the back, I journaled about visiting the chateau that we went to. One of the chateaus, we got to have lunch with a group of people, and this was on the disposable camera, and I just thought this was such a fun picture because, I mean, we spent the whole day with these people, so we definitely got to know them. And I have like a couple pictures of this. Funny enough, this was on that disposable camera, which this was one that I really didn't think was going to turn out because it was from very far away. But I was really impressed whenever it developed. I will say it is definitely crooked, which, you know, our phones help us with that a lot. But I love that you can see the reflection of the chateau in the water. And then this was us outside of one of the chateaus. This was the picture, so it's the same picture, but this is on my phone. So you can see there's just like a little bit more details, and the picture itself is a little bit less crooked, more straight. This one's got that kind of foggy look to it, but both of them I think are pretty. And what I did on this, I thought the background was too busy, so I just stitched some vellum on. I love the way that vellum creates like a frosted look in albums. And then lots of journaling, like I mentioned. And I'm holding my album up so that you guys don't have too much of a glare. But no journaling on this spread. I love how this picture turned out. I think I actually posted this one on my Instagram too, because I think it's so pretty with the chateau in the background. And then you can see the water underneath. And then after Tours, we went to Paris for a couple of days. So this was kind of talking about our first day in Paris, and we were there specifically for the summer solstice event. They do all kinds of cool stuff for summer solstice since it's their longest day of the year, so they don't charge any fees for busking. So there's music on every street corner, sometimes multiple bands playing, and it's every type of music that you could imagine. So we were really excited to be a part of that, and you'll see in just a couple minutes some journaling to reflect on that. And they were doing a little sailboat race, and each of the sailboats represented a different country, which I thought was really cool. And this is what the street corners looked like as it got dark in Paris. It was so beautiful. Everything was lit up. There were so many restaurants on the street. And it was so fun to just walk around. And I have a little bit of journaling about that. And then I wanted to, I feel like I started to get in this like zone where I was just doing individual pockets. And so I added this flower on top to kind of try to make it to where this went together rather than so separate. And this is us right outside the Seine. And we were just, you can even see there's some people starting to line up out here to start getting ready to play music. And this is something that we stumbled upon. This was actually a whole orchestra just playing in the street. It was so beautiful. When we went, this is on the disposable camera, Notre Dame was still being renovated for what happened after the fire. So we didn't get to go in, but we did get to see it from outside. And it was stunning. It was so pretty. And I wish that I would have gotten a better picture. This is on the disposable camera, like I mentioned, so it's a little bit blurry, but I think it's still cool. On the other side, we have some more, another disposable camera picture, and then this was some music that was playing. They were playing like some dance music. It was really funky. So everybody that was out here, they were all dancing or singing along or just watching. And it was really cool. And then that night while we were having dinner, we could see the Eiffel Tower in the distance. We could hear music playing, and we had the most delicious food, and we were definitely like overwhelmed with this dream kind of coming true. And so we had just such a good dinner. And in fact, my husband complimented the chef, and he somehow got the chef's phone number. I don't know, I wasn't there, but that was an interesting little thing that I wanted to journal about. And then, yeah, this is us actually visiting the Eiffel Tower the next day. And oh my gosh, no one prepared me for going to the top of the Eiffel Tower. It's actually quite a scary experience. You are very high up, especially when you consider that this structure is super old, and as you're going up you can just see like all of the scaffolding of the building, and you hear it. It's very loud, and it was kind of terrifying, I'm not gonna lie, but I wasn't gonna let it get in the way of me seeing this view. So this is actually only from the first floor of the Eiffel Tower. This is when we were at the top, so you can see how it is a good bit, we're a good bit higher, like you can see even more. And they have champagne at the top of the Eiffel Tower, which I thought was really cool, and they have a restaurant up there. So we enjoyed a glass of champagne, which I don't think I got a picture of. This was on my disposable camera. I kind of like the quality of how it's a little bit blurred at the top. And then this was the sunset that day. And again, this was around like 10:30 or 11 when the sun finally started setting, but it was really cool that I got to capture that on summer solstice. And this these are more pictures of some of the music that we were seeing. This is again right along the Seine. So this is where a lot of the music was happening. And I journaled because we actually trained a little bit. Like, you know, my husband works from home and I'm a teacher, so I typically walk 10,000 steps a day, but not 20. And I knew it was going to be a heavily walked trip. Like, we were going to be walking everywhere. So before we went, like the 2 weeks before, we would do a lot more walks and try to get closer to 20K. So that way, when we got there, our legs weren't sore, or, you know, we weren't like too exhausted because we had kind of prepped ourselves. So I did write about that a little bit in the album. This was kind of a funny story about how we went to this cemetery where a lot of famous people are buried, poets, musicians, and we got there and it had just closed. And this was like, we had to take 2 different subways. We got lost. We were running around trying to make it, and they had just pulled the gate whenever we got there. So it was disappointing, but there was a park outside of the cemetery that was really pretty. So we did at least get to walk around there and talk to some people. And then this was some journaling about the Louvre. So this is now our next day in Paris. I think we did 2 or 3 days in Paris. And this was a day we had a lot of activities planned. This was our last day, so we wanted to see as much as we could. And the Louvre was definitely like a bucket list item. But we had another tour booked for the Palace of Versailles. So we only had like 2 hours in the Louvre, and it's just nowhere near enough time. We got lost. Like, it was so just crazy. I would love to go back one day. It was awesome. These are some pictures from the inside of the Louvre of some like statues. This was our favorite part. We loved the statue room. And then, yeah, you can see some of like really famous art in the background. And this was kind of the crowd of people I wanted to include. This was like on a Tuesday too. So kind of interesting how, like, you know, it's always busy, pretty much, people touring and exploring it. And yeah, we did not have nearly enough time, and then we ended up missing the first part of our tour of Versailles, so we had to like catch an Uber and meet them there. And this was us like kind of being silly with our little guided tour. We looked very touristy with our little what are these called, like self-guided like speakers, but it was fine. And then I love this picture. This actually is inside. This is part of the next day. So the next day we then traveled to Mont Saint Michel, which is kind of on an island, and you can only access it during certain times of day because of the tide. So inside of the abbey, they have all of these beautiful, like silent, like chapel-esque, cathedral-looking buildings. I mean, it's an abbey. So I just love this picture and how it turned out. You can see just the amount of detail that went into building something like that. And then this was a view from our hotel room, so you can kind of see like the water in the background, and there were so many like seagulls and pigeons and birds This is kind of a crappy picture on my disposable camera, but it was the only one I got of us on a train, which I wish I would have gotten more because we definitely were taking the train a lot, and it was kind of a cool thing. The train is pretty different in America. It's nowhere near as comfortable. I love the little trays that they have and the snacks that you can get, but this was just somehow the only picture that I got. When we got to Mont Saint Michel, you know, a lot of places in France didn't have AC, which, you know, we were expecting. It was fine, but it was warm. We went in June and then early July. And one of my favorite stories is going to sleep. So again, this is our hotel room, right? You can see all these birds, and we were hot, so we kept the window open, and we woke up at like 2 in the morning probably to just thousands of birds like right outside our window on this rooftop, and they were all just like screaming. Like, it was just the craziest noise. And so we either had to sleep hot with the window closed and no breeze, or just accept that there were going to be birds screaming outside of our window, and we just kind of accepted it. Luckily, about an hour went by and they kind of tapered off. Whatever was ruffling their feathers, I guess, didn't bother them as much. This is Mont Saint Michel. So this is a picture of the outside, so you can see there's like sand all around it. And this is during high tide. So this is when you can actually access it. Or sorry, this is during low tide. So when you can actually pull up. And then high tide happens at night. So you can't leave the island after 5 p.m. unless you are going to take a boat, but they really don't have a lot of boats that come. But we really wanted to spend the night there, and it was so cool. It was so quiet after 5. A lot of people don't stay on the actual, in the actual abbey. They usually stay like kind of close by on the mainland. So it was cool being able to stay there. But these were some more funny pictures. We had wanted to walk on the beach, had no idea how much you would sink into the sand, and these were the only pair of shoes that Jake brought. So he ended up completely caking them in mud. Luckily, this was one of our last days, so we just did what we could to rinse it off and then let them dry overnight. But that was kind of a funny little story of him getting caked in mud. He was not happy about that. And then lots of stained glass all throughout the abbey. So I just had some little journalings about that. You can see in the album I love texture, so I added lots of little ribbons and trims. I try to do that as often as I can without being too obnoxious. This was to kind of break up the color palette a little bit and tie it into the picture. This was me journaling about that hotel, and this was kind of like one of the last pictures that we got as we left the abbey. And then this was that night we went back to the train, took it back to Paris, stayed in a hotel overnight, and then we woke up at like 3:30 a.m. to head to the airport. So we didn't really explore much in Paris because we had already been, but that's where their main airport is. So we left, train ride, a little bit of sleep, and then airport the next day. We did have a layover in Montreal, and they have a beautiful cathedral there that we went and visited. We actually stayed overnight in Montreal, but I actually sprained my ankle while we were walking around Montreal, so I didn't get a lot of pictures because we ended up just calling it an early night at that point. Luckily, it wasn't until the end of our trip. You know, that could have been much worse. It made me grateful. Like, as much as I was mad that we didn't get to walk as much as we wanted to in Montreal, I was like, well, this could have been a lot worse. Like, I could have gotten a sprained ankle right at the beginning of the trip. So, and then this was just, oh, I hate this picture of myself, but this was just a picture of my sister picking us up from the airport, and I had her like a little bunny made. It had her name on it, and then it said Paris on the other one, on the other ear of the bunny. And so it was just a picture of all of us heading back home. She had driven 3 hours to come pick us up from the airport. So I was really grateful, and the ride just flew by because we had so much to share, and she was so curious about our trip, and she knew how much we had been wanting to go. So it was fun, and it was great that she was there. So that is my album. There is nothing decorated on the back. You can kind of see actually how chunky it is. It almost sits a little bit crooked with the back page leaning. So, but that's everything. I know this is kind of a long video with a lot of chatter about our trip, but hopefully you enjoyed, and hopefully you like the album, found some inspiration in one thing or the other. And I will talk to you guys soon. Bye.